The Valide Sultan of Mustafa I was a consort of Ottoman Sultan Mehmed III and the mother of Mustafa I. She was de facto co-ruler as the Valide Sultan from the 22nd of November 1617 to the 26th of February 1618 and again from the 19th of May 1622 to the 10th of September 1623. Early life. Her name remains unknown, but she usually known with name Halime or Alima. She was of Abkhazian origin and married Mehmed III in 1589. During Mehmed's reign her stipend consisted of 100 aspas a day. Grand Viziers Melik Ahmed Pasha and Ibsir Mustafa Pasha, and the statesman Abazar Hassan Pasha were the relatives of her father. Isju together with Mehmed, she had 2 children. Mustafa I, Sultan of the Ottoman Empire. Unnamed daughter, the wife of Kara Davud Pasha, as Valide Sultan. First tenure. When Mustafa ascended the throne in 1617, she became the Valide Sultan as well as a regent and wielded a great power. No one had expected that Mustafa, who suffered from severe emotional problems, would become sultan, and so she had not enjoyed a position of much status within the imperial harem. She received 3,000 aspas although her mother-in-law Safiya Sultan was still alive, while she, as the wife of Mehmed III, had suffered the same obscurity as Handan Sultan. She was clearly able to command greater status as Valide Sultan than her fellow consort had. This was probably in large measure because she exercised power more directly, acting as regent for her mentally incompetent son as his mental condition unimproved and was a puppet controlled by her and her son-in-law, the Grand Vizier Kara Davud Pasha. She had a potential ally in Kara Davud Pasha, but during Mustafa's first reign, which lasted for only 3 months, she was unable to exploit her relationship by appointing Davud Pasha vizier, one of the few political alliances the Valide was able to forge with her son's sword-bearer, Mustafa Aga, a high-ranking inner palace officer, who was brought out of the palace and awarded the prestigious and strategically vital post of governor of Egypt on condition that he would marry the Sultan's wet nurse. Within a few months the Pasha was brought back to Istanbul as Grand Vizier. Osman's enthronement. Later, Mustafa was dethroned and his nephew Osman II ascended the throne due to Mustafa's mental conditions. Mustafa was sent back to Cafes and her to the Old Palace. However, she received only 2,000 aspas during her retirement to the Old Palace between her son's 2 reigns. During the first months of her retirement, Safiya was still alive, perhaps a neighbor in the Old Palace, receiving 3,000 aspas a day. Second tenure. Later, on the 18th of May 1622, Osman was again dethroned and the rebels, meanwhile, broke into the imperial palace and freed Mustafa from his confinement and acclaimed him as their master. She once again returned from the Old Palace and became the Valide Sultan. Some of the Janissaries consulted with her about the appointments to be made, and it was in fact her son-in-law, Kara Davud Pasha, who became the Grand Vizier. The faction committed to the cause of Mustafa and she could not feel secure while Osman II was alive. Their uneasiness was well grounded, since some of the rebels wished to spare Osman, hoping no doubt to make no use of him for their own ends at some future date. Kara Davud Pasha had recourse, therefore, to the last extreme measure. On the 20th of May 1622, Osman II was strangled in the prison of Yedikul at Istanbul. Murad's enthronement. After Osman's death, the Governor-General of Erzurum, Abazar Mehmed Pasha, decided to advance to Istanbul to settle the score with the murderers of Osman II. Kara Davud Pasha was chosen as a scapegoat and was executed in an attempt to modify the discontent and preempt the rebellions that were building up in the empire, but to no avail. Mehmed Pasha, despite the offers made by the emissaries from the capital, continued his advance. Faced with an ever-deepening crisis, clerics petitioned her to agree to the deposition of her son in favor of 11-year-old Şehzade Murad, the oldest surviving son of Ahmed I. She concurred, only pleading that her son's life be spared. Accordingly, Mustafa was dethroned and incarcerated again. In popular culture, in the 2015 TV series Muhteşem Yüzyıl, Kosum, she is given the name of Halime Sultan, and is portrayed by Turkish actress Aslı Gürbüz. Succession.